welcome everyone. I'm Melissa Goodstein, and I'm the president of the New York Association of Collaborative Professionals. And today I'm continuing my series with you on collaborative chats, where I get an opportunity to interview members of NYACP and connect more deeply and learn a little bit more about them and about why they're practicing in the collaborative process, and to learn a little bit more about their background. And today I have the pleasure of speaking to Dr. Bob Raymond, who is a family specialist. He's a clinical psychologist, certified psychoanalyst, a marriage and family therapist. And he has also been on the board of NYACP for a number of years and is a really valued member of NYACP. So I am so honored and to welcome Bob to chat with him today. So welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Melissa. It's a pleasure to speak with you here.
Yeah. So Bob, can you tell me a little bit about your family? Like, where did you grow up?
So I was born in the Bronx and raised in the Bronx.
Mhm.
My parents married late in life. My mother was one of seven children, the oldest of seven. My father was the oldest of eight. They both married late in life. My mother was in her 40s.
Oh my
My
God.
father was in his late 50s. I was born a few years afterwards,
Oh,
after they married, so rather late in their lives.
wow. Wow.
Therefore,
And yeah, that's amazing. And during that time, that's like not that wasn't that's all. Yeah.
very unusual, right?
Wow.
Fortunately, I have a lot of first cousins who were around my own age, so
Oh,
that was very helpful to me growing up.
very nice. So, what can you speak a little bit about how did you get interested in the field that you are practicing now as being a mental health professional? Can you speak to where that passion came from?
Um, I got interested in psychology during college. I started out being a music major, and I had an older cousin who was very interested in my background, what it was like growing up. She really was a mentor to me. Um, and I learned the value of being able to talk to somebody about what my issues were in my life. She wasn't a therapist, she wasn't a mental health person, but it was an experience that I grew from and learned a lot from. And that helped me move in the direction of majoring in psychology and learning very early in my life that I wanted to be a psychologist. And I knew early on that I wanted to be a psychoanalyst.
Wow, and can you speak a little bit about the music? You said that you were also you went to a high school where you focused on music. Can you speak to that?
So my mother was a piano teacher,
Mhm.
and I probably was banging on the keys before I could walk. I think the family thought I was going to become a musician. I went to what was then Music and Art High School in New York City.
Oh wow.
It's now called LaGuardia High School. Um, and it wasn't until college when I decided to make that shift from music to psychology.
Wow. Wow. So do you still play, Bob?
I do still play. I
No,
still have
that
a piano. I still get to it as much as I can.
do you do that? Is that a big stress reliever for you to play, or
That
do you
is a big
enjoy it?
stress reliever. Yep,
Wow,
it is.
that's wonderful. My mom also went to music and art. That must have been an amazing experience for you.
Uh-huh.
That's
Well,
awesome.
yep.
So if you had to, you spoke about your cousin, is there other relationships, or what is the best relationship in your life, and why? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Certainly, the best relationship I have is with my spouse, my husband, Michael. Um, I met him in 2005. We became good friends, and then we became lovers and partners. Uh, we had a civil union, got
Mm.
married in 2010. Um, but it's the most important relationship because I can talk to him about anything. I can debrief with him at the end of the day for me, sharing my issues, my vulnerabilities. Um, and we complement each other. And there's nothing better than having such a wonderful partner.
That's wonderful.
Family is also important. I've got 2 children. I've got a few grandchildren. Those are important relationships as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, the work that we do is really hard, and it's really nice to come home to a supportive ear and and somebody to support you. Yeah, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
really in the field that you're in, are there particular role models that you think of top of mind that you had during your career?
Well, in the collaborative work that I do, working in this field, 2 people come to mind. One is David Hoffman, who's up in Boston. He founded the collaborative law group up there. I think he's an amazing individual, very, very bright, very curious about people. He does fabulous trainings. I've gone to many at IACP. He did a training for us here at NYACP a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I just think he's an amazing person because of his clarity and the way he kind of combines his academic knowledge and skills with his human interest, and the way he draws people out. The other person who is a role model for me is Peg Clark, who was the president of NYACP for a few of the years that I was on the board of NYACP. And I've always admired the way Peg, in a very soft-spoken way, would draw people out. As a leader, she would seek to obtain as much information as possible on whatever issues were being talked about, and she guided the process in a very, very meaningful way that always wound up having great results.
I couldn't agree with you more. Peg Clark is also someone who I hold really dearly, and she's a good friend. And her leadership was pretty awesome. So, and David Hoffman, you know, I think he's definitely presented before our group, and he's just a powerful speaker and so authentic. It comes from a place of authenticity, and it's just his manner. I totally, yeah, that's amazing.
No, I think you've said it really well. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of just your interest in collaborative divorce, because you really are a valued go-to person, you know that, Bob, so respected in our field as a family specialist, and your work in the collaborative divorce process. What, why did you choose, or where does that interest in collaborative divorce come from?
So I've been trained as a clinical psychologist and as a forensic psychologist. I used to do work in family court in New Jersey, and part of that work involved doing forensic evaluations to help the judge determine which parent would get custody or what the parenting plan would be. And it was such a difficult process. I learned there what it was like for families to go through the litigation process, where they were at war with each other, trying to win out over the other, even on issues of who was going to get custody of the children. It soon became apparent to me that it was absolutely appalling that judges would make these decisions based on a report that I would write or another forensic evaluator would write. I just didn't think that was a good process. And I only did that for a short time. And then in 2003 and 2004, I went through my own divorce, which was litigated. And it was really difficult for myself and my wife, and for my 2 children who were adults. Well, they were both in college at that time, but it was still incredibly difficult and polarizing for them. So it wasn't until I learned about collaborative divorce in 2007 that I felt as though that must be a better way. I got trained in 2008 in doing this work, and since then, I've felt so relieved and so empowered about being able to help others divorce in a better way than what I saw in the past and what I experienced by being able to stay out of the litigation process.
And I'm sure being in the company, that's really powerful, Bob, and being in the company of like-minded professionals who kind of share your vision on, and how to resolve conflict must be a less toxic place to practice, if you will.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. So, in terms of divorce, having gone through yourself and having to help many couples navigate that space, is there a divorce tip that you think is that you can share or offer that you've thought about?
Well, if a couple is divorcing with children, I would ask them to keep their children front and center, especially if the children are young. Your young children do not have the cognitive or the emotional resources, development that adults have. Please keep that in mind, even if they're older, as my children were. It still can be extraordinarily difficult to experience their family, their parents breaking up. And if you don't have children, or even if you have children, understand that you're going through one of the most difficult experiences of your life, if not the most difficult experience. It's an enormous disruption. There are enormous losses, and there are emotions that get stirred up as a result. So please try to be as aware of your emotions as possible. Seek as much support as possible from friends, family, and the professionals who are working with you. And be guided by, you want to be the best that you can be during the process, not the worst that you can be during the process, which unfortunately often happens. And what we do in collaborative divorce is try to help people move toward being better than they would be without that emotional support and understanding.
Bob, can you describe briefly, like what value can you bring as a like what is your role as the family specialist in the collaborative process? What do you bring to the table to help couples?
So, as a mental health professional, I've been trained in understanding how people react emotionally to difficult situations. And so I sit at the table when negotiations are going on and can identify what emotions are impacting the process as people discuss their views of settlement. Um, and sometimes that can involve talking about the emotions going on with the professionals around the table, not just the clients. Um, we have meetings of the professionals before a full team meeting with clients, and we can talk about what we're feeling, and I help guide those emotions. We also have debrief sessions after the meetings. And in the same way, mental health professionals like myself bring value to those meetings by bringing in the emotional side of what's going on, which is front and center.
It is, and I think so important, and experiencing it myself just from the clients who've been supported as well as the professionals. You're really a really important holder of the process and facilitating and keeping the emotions and navigating them in a way that will help with supporting settlement. And that's really powerful. And thank you, Bob, for sharing that.
Thank you for
Well,
understanding.
yeah, it's the neutrality. It helps hold the process. So the value of neutrality in the collaborative process and with the family specialist as well as the financial specialist as well are really important anchors to a successful outcome, I believe. So
And then there's also the child specialist
that's
that
right. But
sometimes
yeah, I was gonna
holds the
say,
process.
that's right. Can you speak a little bit about the child specialist role? Because I know in our work, it's kind of morphed into this family specialist, but there is elements of the family specialist that work individually with or speak about children related issues. Can you speak really briefly about the child specialist role?
So let me say now that two things. One, I'm working on a case now where there's a high conflict between the couple. It's a very contentious process, and it was important to get the view of the children. And like you said, Melissa, sometimes that role is folded into the family specialist role, but I felt that my attention was and focus needs to be on the two adults, and I didn't have the time or the energy. So we brought in a child specialist who was able to meet with the children, as they were living. The couple was separated in each home, so that child specialist went to each home, saw what it was like, was able to speak to the children in each home, and has been able throughout this process to work with the parents on developing a parenting plan, which, as difficult as it's been to work on the finances of this divorce, working out the parenting plan has been enormously challenging. And it's been wonderful to have a well-trained, competent child specialist who's part of our organization in that role. And let me put in a plug here for the next New York City pod meeting. And we have pods in all three boroughs, Westchester, Long Island, and New York City. The upcoming pod, which is the second Tuesday of every month, is going to be devoted to bringing children to the table and how children can be part of the collaborative process when it's appropriate.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I look forward to attending. And what I also appreciate and what the collaborative process offers is a really individualized approach to every family's conflict. And we have a team of professionals to come in and really targeted that support. We have, so in your case, you were able to kind of pivot and kind of understand that maybe there was another professional that needed to be in the room to attend to this challenge and to help support them and to bring the children in the room in a place that was safe and bringing their voice. And that's what a child specialist does in that way. That's incredible. And I look forward to that presentation, Bob. Thank you. I know you just do such tremendous work for families, because at the end of a marriage, you still are a family, you still are parents, and supporting that relationship is really important.
Thank you.
So just in terms of the work that we do, which is really challenging, I'm always interested to hear what people do on their off time. I know that you have music, which is a great outlet for you, and a supportive husband. Can you talk a little bit about, if you did have your day off, like what would be a perfect day off for Bob, and when he's not working, what do you do off duty that, would give you like a nice reset?
That's a lovely question. I would spend the first part of the day at the piano. I'd revive some of the Chopin and Beethoven that I used to play, or even if I just played scales and Hanon and Czerny, that would be fine as well. Because I don't get the time to sit down at the piano nearly as much as I would like. And I'd spend the second part of the day on a picnic. I'd ask my husband, I'd ask some friends and some family perhaps to go to a lake. We'd have a nice picnic basket with fruit and wine and cheese, and just have a lovely afternoon relaxing in nature.
Oh, I'm totally there, Bob. That sounds lovely. Wow.
I'd invite you to come as well.
Okay. I'll take you up on it. It sounds beautiful. Talking about the food, do you enjoy cooking, and do you have a signature dish, Bob?
So when I have time to cook, I enjoy cooking. Usually I make simple meals. Last night I made salmon, but my signature dish, as you ask, is stuffed cabbage. I learned to make that from my mother. Wow. And I love to make that on a special holiday.
That's right. Do you put
Mhm.
raisins in it, Bob?
I do put raisins, I put honey,
Oh, wow. Okay.
so it's
Right.
kind of sweet and sour.
Oh, yeah, that's lovely. I don't like the raisins, but I can pick it out. But do you think that you can share that recipe if we ever get, I'm trying to get together a cookbook one of these days. Do you think that you can share that recipe with us, Bob?
Happy to do that.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. That's a nice actually recipe for the new year. Isn't stuffed cabbage for the sweet? Did you cook that
Right,
recently?
I cook that especially during the holidays.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Mhm.
So getting back to collaborative process and more particularly NYACP, is there a memorable NYCP experience that you want to share with us, Bob?
The most memorable experience I have is the training that I had with NYACP. It was in 2008. Wonderful trainers. I mean, I can remember it as though it were yesterday. Uh,
Wow, that's powerful.
the
Wow.
um, you know, Catherine Lazar.
Yeah.
It's okay to mention some names. She's not
Oh,
part of
yeah,
our
she's still practicing and she's in the
right.
Hudson Valley and we do
Right.
a lot of co-sponsoring
I mean, just
programs with her.
and mental health, Maria Albert Fish.
Oh, yeah.
They taught me so much. I remember everything about the 3 days of training. Uh,
Wow.
it was
Wow.
just remarkable.
Wow.
That
Wow.
stands out for me.
Wow. And is there something that you would tell your younger self to prepare for the career ahead? Because you have been in practice. How long have you been in practice, Bob?
Longer than I wish to remember. I
So the
started
younger
out.
Bob, yeah.
I I became a psychologist in the early '80s.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
so
So
since
this
then,
is
yeah.
so is there something that you might tell your younger self to prepare for the career ahead? And you've had a pretty awesome career.
Thank you. As an only child, I kind of grew up, despite having cousins, I grew up kind of rather solitary. And so I learned about the academics of my future career. I learned the professional skills of my future career. What I didn't really learn until much later was the importance of developing collegial relationships, the importance of having peers to share the experience with, to learn from, to bounce ideas off of, uh, to obtain support from valuable peers um, who later become business associates, who could give me referrals, who I could make referrals to. Um, my, I would tell my younger self, and I would tell those who are younger, becoming professionals in any of the interdisciplinary fields within our profession of collaborative law, to feel free to, and I would encourage their involvement with their peers for support. Um, it's just as important as
I,
the
I
academic work and the professional skills.
that's really great advice. And I know I tap into the amazing colleagues that we have in our group daily. Really, they're a great support system, especially when you're like a solo practitioner. It's really nice to have that collegiality, that peer, just someone to sound off and just to kind of get add some more voice and input in helping you for best practices and your own sanity too. Really.
Melissa, I think that's one of the strengths of our organization, NYACP. We have these groups. I mentioned the pod in New York, but the three pods, I belong to the pod in New York, I regularly attend the Long Island pod, the New York City pod. Um, there are the support groups. I run one in New York City. Those are opportunities for our members to grow, share, and have that kind of collegial, warm, supportive interaction. And I think that's been a real bonus to membership.
I agree. And thank you for highlighting that. We definitely have many opportunities, many options for members to really connect and get that support that they need for their practice. And speaking about just the process itself, just to close it off here as we're nearing the end, where do you hope to be in 10 years? And where do you hope for collaborative practice to be in that time?
Well, I hope to still be here and doing collaborative work.
We hope you are
Um,
too.
Thank you. Um, my real hope is that collaborative practice will be better known than it is today, that it may become a go-to process for people going through divorce. I don't think it's caught on as much as it needs to. I don't think it's as well known as it needs to be. So I hope that in the next 10 years, it could be more entrenched in, in our system.
I hope so too, but I'm inspired by the work that you do to help further this movement. And I really appreciate that you're committed to it and committed to the work that we do in our mission in NYCP and helping families resolve conflict in a better way. And I want to thank you, Bob, for spending the time with me this morning. I want to hear, how do people, if people want to reach out to you, Bob, I know you're on our website, but is there, um, tell us you practice in the city and then the island. Do you still practice in New Jersey, Bob?
I'm still licensed in New Jersey. I don't have an office in New Jersey. I used to have three offices, one in the city, one on Long,
I
have a
know
house
you're
on Long
always.
Island, and I've been able to cut back a little bit. So I'm down to two offices.
Oh, okay.
Um, but I still work with some people in New Jersey.
Okay.
And, but now I'm primarily in New York City and out in Suffolk County on Long Island.
And how do people find you, Bob? Do you have a website?
I do have a website. You can Google me.
Okay.
And truly, the predominant referrals that I get are through colleagues.
That's right. And the
Mhm.
power of networking and the
Yeah.
power of really getting that professional support and reaching out and that's one of your tips too for your younger self. So I'll leave you with this, Bob, and thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to that New York City pod event and thank you for that and look forward to seeing you at our upcoming training and other events at NYCP. And thank you most importantly for your service to NYCP. You've been a tremendous resource and added a lot of value to many of our to the practice and our organization. And I thank you for your service.
Thank you, Melissa, for this chat.
Thanks. Bye.